For the first minute, we need to talk about conditions on the Western Front, not the battles, but the nights. Soldiers slept in muddy trenches, flooded dugouts, frost-bitten fields, or makeshift barns where wind cut through every crack. Wool blankets absorbed moisture until they weighed as much as a kit bag. Early sleeping bags were heavy, slow to dry, and prone to mildew. What soldiers actually relied on, especially in the opening years of the war, was something different. It was the WWI bedroll, a layered, tightly bound, weather-resistant sleeping system that outperformed even high-quality wool in the conditions the troops actually lived through. This bedroll wasn't pretty, but it was engineered by necessity. It provided insulation, moisture protection and durability without adding unnecessary weight. And the design still makes sense today, especially for survivalists who need a shelter-ready, mud-proof system that doesn't fail the moment the weather turns foul. The WWI bedroll began as a response to the way wool fails in wet, cold and unsheltered conditions. Wool is excellent when dry and properly aired, but it breaks down in the environment soldiers faced in 1914 to 1918. Trenches trapped moisture. Rain soaked through equipment. Nights often dropped below freezing just as humidity climbed. A wool blanket left exposed for a single night could stay damp for days. Soldiers complained that wool froze stiff, collected lice, absorbed mud, and became a breeding ground for mildew. For men expected to march at dawn, a heavy wet blanket was more burden than protection. Armies needed a sleeping system that resisted ground moisture, insulated reliably, and could be rolled and carried without falling apart. This led to the development of layered bedrolls, simple in appearance but surprisingly advanced in function. The core idea was to use multiple thin layers rather than a single thick blanket. This created pockets of trapped air, improved drying time, and allowed each layer to serve a specific purpose. Media group, macro shots of air pockets in layered fabrics, authentic images of WWI bedrolls drying in camp, close-up of water-resistant material, wool blankets and canvas outer layers in a bedroll stock distribute equally moisture protection, heat retention and abrasion resistance. The construction of the World War I bedroll made it far more versatile than wool alone. A typical bedroll contained an outer sheet treated with waxed canvas, oilcloth, or tightly woven cotton that resisted water. Inside that, soldiers placed 2 or 3 wool or flannel layers that could be separated, dried, or replaced as needed. This modular approach gave the system a level of adaptability wool blankets simply didn't offer. The outer layer was crucial. It prevented ground moisture from seeping into the inner layers. It also acted as a primitive vapor barrier, trapping warmth while keeping cold air out. Soldiers could lay it directly onto wet soil, wooden duckboards, straw bedding, or barn floors without immediately sacrificing insulation. The inner layers, meanwhile, stayed far drier than a blanket laid directly on the ground. This design allowed soldiers to reposition or remove layers depending on temperature. In freezing conditions, all layers stayed inside the roll. In milder weather, one layer could be kept aside. The ability to separate layers made cleaning easier, and replacing worn inner fabric was far simpler than replacing a full blanket or early sleeping bag. The performance of this bedroll in frontline conditions proved its superiority. Reports from British, French, Canadian and Australian troops all described the same outcome. While wool blankets became dead weight, the bedroll kept delivering warmth and protection even in mud-soaked trenches. Soldiers valued the roll's durability. It resisted tearing, strain from being lashed to packs, and the constant damp that destroyed untreated cloth. The roll also offered a distinct advantage that modern sleeping bags struggle with: rapid deployment. A soldier could unroll the system, climb in, and be protected in seconds. No zippers to jam, no stuffing to clump, no tight, restrictive fit that trapped moisture against the body. When orders came to move, the entire roll could be gathered, shaken off, and re-rolled without needing to dry the outer layer first. The World War I bedroll's endurance came from its layered engineering. It was a sleeping system built for mud, not campsites. It was built for cold, not controlled environments. It was built for movement, not luxury. This World War I technique remains practical today and is easy to recreate with simple materials. For survivalists or anyone building reliable shelter gear, the World War I bedroll can be recreated using modern equivalents that follow the same principles. Start with a moisture-resistant outer layer. Heavy canvas, treated with beeswax, and oil replicates the original outer shell. Inside that, place 2 to 3 layers of flannel, wool, or even fleece. The key is modularity. Each layer must be separate so it dries and warms efficiently. The roll is assembled by laying out the outer layer, placing the insulation layers on top, folding the outer sheet over the edges to create a sealed envelope, and rolling tightly from one end to the other. When tied with cordage or leather straps, the result is compact and durable. Using this system in the field means you can sleep on damp soil without immediately soaking your insulation. If one layer becomes wet, you can separate and dry it while still using the others. The roll is naturally resistant to abrasion and can double as a ground mat in emergencies. This method offers something lightweight synthetics still struggle with: reliability in real dirt, real rain, and real cold without catastrophic failure. The World War I bedroll remains one of the most practical sleeping systems ever designed. It beat wool because it solved the problems wool couldn't. It beat early sleeping bags because it was simpler, tougher, and more adaptable. And today, anyone who studies historical survival methods or practices off-grid living can still benefit from the World War I approach. If you want more historically grounded survival knowledge backed by real field performance, subscribe to In the Beginning, share this video with fellow enthusiasts, and keep this kind of practical history alive.